Thank you for joining me at True North here today. And I want to thank you for sharing this with your friends. This is an incredibly fast-growing blog because it's here to help you build your practice, to build better relationships with your patients, and to have a greater impact of chiropractic in your community. And we do that by answering questions. Today we have a question that comes in from Dr. Cynthia out of New Jersey. She says, Dr. CJ, my team is made up of better people than they are CAs. I know I'm really missing the boat when it comes to team development. Please advise. Well, I can tell you that this is one of the most common questions that I get from my clients. And I also want you to know that there's 3 keys that I always want to leave you with when you're training with me here at True North so that you can consolidate what I'm saying and bring it back to your practice and do something with it right away. The first thing I'd say is that your patients, your CAs, they can't sell what they don't own, and they can't own what they don't believe. And so what happens with too many people that work in a chiropractic practice, they're not living the life of chiropractic. Do you know that most CAs do not get adjusted on a regular basis? They only get adjusted when they hurt. And yet you are trying to build a practice that's not based on pain relief, but based on corrective and wellness care, but the people who work for you are not even going through that process. How could that work? The very people that are serving your patients are not congruent with the work that your patients are supposed to be going through. Most CAs have attended less than 1 workshop on average, meaning they don't go to workshops. In fact, even if the chiropractor doesn't do a workshop, the CA should go to some place that does do a workshop so they can continue to learn and develop. Most CAs are not involved in a weekly training process with their chiropractor. They're not involved in an online study program like at FPLforlife.com. They're not involved in some type of book reading like Life Without Fear by Fred Barge, and 1 chapter a week, let's say, going through reading it as a team and then coming back and, well, what did you learn? What did you love most? What question do you have? What did you not understand? An ongoing, never-ending learning, growing, developing program. So they can't sell what they don't own, and they don't own what they don't believe. The first thing to do is to make your CAs your best patients. And when you do that, a whole lot of things follow in place. So team development, interestingly enough, is making chiropractic CAs great chiropractic patients. The second thing is that CAs work best in a congruent environment, one system, and given the authority to make decisions and take action inside that system. All too often, CAs are considered gophers. You know, they go for this, they go for that, and there's a huge difference between delegation and relegation. Delegation is when somebody owns an environment and has the belief system, the vision, and the concepts of your practice, and they follow suit with a particular strategy that has been set in place. And you have all the trust, the faith, confidence, and belief in them to do so. And people are going to make mistakes, but you give them the authority to act. And when they do so, they become more responsible, they become more powerful, and they own it, and you grow as a result. Relegation is more like it's still you, but you're having them do bits and pieces of it, and so they still don't really own it, they really don't get it, and so they wind up being diminished to administrative responsibilities. Data entry here, a phone call answer there, and they're not, and yet we're still hoping that they're going to add a lot to our practice. That's not team development. That's just simply employee mentality, and that doesn't get you where you want to go. So ask yourself the question, do you have one congruent system yet? If not, do that first. Because otherwise, you're teaching them a little bit from here and a little bit from there and a little bit from here, and all that doesn't really add up to what you want. And then, once you have one congruent system, let them go. Give them the authority to act inside of it with great trust, great confidence, and great belief. And finally, if CAs are not central in the promotion of your practice, they really are employees. You need to be able to see that your team is perhaps your greatest source of new patients. And when your team really believes in who you are, in what the practice does, and the value that it has for your community, doesn't it make sense that your CAs are on the front line with encouraging patients to refer. When they're at the grocery store, they're having that old lady that's having difficulty checking out, making sure she gets a card to call you and find out what's going on with that. It's a 24/7 ministry is what it is when someone understands what you're doing. And your CAs are frontline. And if they're not part of the promotional process, that should be a huge indicator for you that I'm not really building a team. I have a group of good people that are employees that are probably not going to take my practice a whole lot farther than it is. So these are things that I know work every single time. And you've got to find out, where do I start in this cycle? If you need help, contact me. Let's talk about it a little bit further. But I believe if you start here, you're going to find yourself down the road a lot faster. And you know what? Teams are much, much more fun to work with and much more fun to be around. I wish you all the best in building your team. Until next time, practice with passion. God bless.